Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of Dear Masuma with myself, Sana Araji, and Masuma Jaffar, who will be answering your questions directly with any worries, concerns that you may be going through, and inshallah we will try and answer it to the best of our abilities. Assalamu alaikum, Masuma.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, how about yourself?
Alhamdulillah. It's really nice to have you again, and we've got another really important kind of question to put forward to you from one of our viewers, and let's just get straight to it. So it says, Dear Masuma, my daughter has turned 18 and she still won't wear hijab. I don't know what to do. I'm not saying this because she's my daughter, but she is becoming so beautiful. And I'm so worried that she will attract the wrong sort of crowd because she's not wearing hijab. My youngest daughter has just turned 9 and alhamdulillah she wears hijab. However, the other one is very stubborn. She needs to do everything on her own and she decides when she feels like doing something. Is there anything I can do? I've tried talking to her, but she says she doesn't want her religious lectures. What would you do in my place? Sorry. Yeah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Before I address this, can I use this as an opportunity to talk about how important it is that we teach our girls from a very young age about hijab. I think, a lot of parents will wait till they become baligh or sort of say, oh, they'll do it when they're ready or when they understand. But it's important to actually start talking about hijab from a very, very early age, role model it, allow them to wear it, because initially they'll want to copy you. And so encourage that. Explain to them the idea behind the hijab. And when I say that, I'm not talking about just the modest aspect of it, because if all you concentrate is on the modesty aspect, then you're going to have the arguments that I can still be modest and not wear hijab. So I think it's important when we're explaining the rules and regulations that are dictated by Allah, we need to ensure that our children and ourselves understand that they are there for the benefit and the purpose of the soul's growth. They may benefit the body, but the purpose behind the rules is for the soul. Because we live in a physical world and we're physical beings, we know how to take care of our physical body, but we don't know how to take care of our spiritual body, our soul. And Allah, out of His love and mercy, has given us the rulings to help us take care of our soul. If we understand that, then the conversation is much more different. So I tell my child, okay, so you wear hijab. The benefits of that is that you're modest. The fact that you're identified as a Muslim, and that will stop you from doing certain haram things. So you wouldn't walk into a nightclub in hijab. You will be treated as a Muslim, which at the moment could be a negative thing with the way that the media portray Muslims, but it's obviously a positive thing because you're a woman of faith and therefore you're respected as a woman of faith. You will be listened to rather than looked at. Your whole image is not dictated by your looks, but on who you are as a person. So your intellect, your behavior and everything else as well. Those are all the benefits. The purpose behind the hijab, as the purpose behind any of the rulings, is that it is something that the soul absolutely requires, and that's why God's made it wajib. How? I don't know. And it's okay to tell my child I don't know, because I don't know what my soul requires. I don't know what my soul looks like. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran that He has given us but a little knowledge of the soul. And that's not because He's trying to not educate us, but it's because we don't have the ability to understand the soul because we're living in a physical realm. So it's recognizing that I'm a spiritual being. It's recognizing that I'm the soul that will move on in my journey. And it's recognizing that I need to take care of my soul, and I don't know how to because I don't understand my soul. And therefore I listen to Allah to help me to take care of my soul. I think it's much more powerful. So I think if I can bring that in, and if we can teach our children that from a very young age, it will help. One of the ways that really works is where you have, you know, a Play-Doh. If you have like a container with Play-Doh in it, and you tell your child that, say for example, this is your soul. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you that whatever you do, whatever you say will affect your soul. At the end of your life, you will go back to Him with a certain shape. Now, dependent on that shape will depend on whether you end up in heaven or hell, because it depends where that shape fits in. So you know you've got those shape sorters where you put the square in the square one and the circle. So imagine you have to make your soul into a heart shape, because there is only a heart shape cutter, a shape in heaven. So only a heart shape will fit into that. Just an example.
Okay, yeah.
So you tell your child, and this is really beautiful to actually help with their behavior as well. So you say to them, okay, what do you think your soul looks like? So say if they've had a fight with their sibling, or they've hurt another child, or they've had a tantrum, or whatever it is. You give them the Play-Doh and you say to them, what do you think your soul looks like at the moment? And automatically as children, they're going to make it into a love heart shape, because that's what you've told them, that's what it should be. And you say to them, really? So do you think by doing that naughty thing or doing that action, your soul is the love heart shape? And they'll look at you and they'll probably damage the love heart a little bit or change it slightly. But you don't leave it there. You say to them, so what can you do to make it back into a love heart? And that's where then they reflect on how they can right the wrong. I need to apologize to God. I need to apologize to that child. I need to, you know, share my toys or whatever it is.
Okay.
So you're constantly explaining to your child that they need to make that love heart shape. Their soul needs to be that love heart shape. And the reason why I've picked a love heart, again, you can talk about the love of Allah. You can talk about the fact that when you're in heaven, you're going to be with the Ahlul Bayt and the Holy Prophet, and they love you very much. You know, this whole concept of love is really, really important. But what you're trying to do is get your child to recognize that when they do certain things which are against Islam, they're damaging themselves, one. Secondly, to recognize that if they do make those mistakes, they can correct it.
Okay.
And thirdly, they're taking ownership of their own soul and the correction, which is very, very powerful. Then you're not having to parent them all the time. You're comfortable letting them make their own decisions because they're aware of these ideas that you put into their head.
And that's a brilliant idea. I think I'm going to have to get my Play-Doh back out, actually, because they're visualizing an idea. Because, like, for example, when you had spoken about the soul before, I had taken that back and I started speaking to my own children about that. And when I'm explaining to them, they're like, but what does the soul look like? Yeah. And I was stuck, and I was like, to be honest, I don't know, but you see it as kind of like a nur, like a beautiful light that is within you. That's what makes you alive. But using that tool of just the Play-Doh is actually a really good idea, because it kind of makes them have that concept of...
And they can visualize it and think about it.
Yeah.
And it teaches them to self-reflect. So at the end of the day, before they go to bed, actually give them the Play-Doh, have it by their bedside table. What does your soul look like tonight?
That's fantastic.
And what are you going to do about it? So again, that concept of reflection, which is, which we have in so many hadith, which, constantly we're told, reflect on your day, so that we can actually correct the things that we've done wrongly before it's too late.
Exactly, and because it's always shaping, it will always change. And just like us as human beings are constantly changing, that's a fantastic idea.
That's on the side. I think it's really, really important that we teach our child from a very young age. But obviously with this child, she's 18 years old.
Of course, yeah.
So one of the things I'd actually say, at the age of 18, you're looking to go into university or a job or some sort of apprenticeship or something where you're starting somewhere new. So it's easier to actually put on hijab when you're starting somewhere new, where people don't know you and they'll just know you the way that you present yourself initially.
Okay.
So it might be a good idea to have that conversation. It's like, okay, in school and everything, it was difficult because your friends knew you without hijab, and then to put on hijab, all those questions that would come, and then people, like, why are you doing it now, and what's, and it's a little bit difficult sometimes because it's out of your comfort zone to sort of change your whole identity. Whereas if you do it when you go into a new place, like into university, into apprenticeship or work or whatever it is, they're not going to know you. So you're going in with hijab, so your identity is as a hijabi. So maybe that's a conversation that the parents need to have with that daughter, looking at it from that perspective. Yeah. Talking about, and again, she says that the daughter is whenever the mother tries to talk to her, she says, I don't want to hear religious lectures. So maybe look at it again, if you're looking at it from the soul perspective, it's not so much religion shoved down your throat, it's more about you taking care of yourself, one. Secondly, you're looking at it from the perspective of what's your identity? How do you want people to perceive you as? What sort of person do you want to be? It's like a lot of the times we feel like, I don't want to listen to God because I want to have a say. But honestly, if you're not listening to God, guaranteed you're listening to someone else, whether it's your friends, whether it's your peers, whether it's the media. It's not, you're not making a decision all on your own. Because we live in a society where we're, told how to think, even if it's subconsciously. So although I think I'm making my own decisions, I'm really not. I'm being led by what others are telling us. And I need to sort of question, do I want others to tell me how to behave, or do I want God to tell me how to behave? Because when others are telling me how to behave, it's very much biased towards what they get out of it.
Exactly, yeah.
Whereas when God's telling me how to behave, it's not biased. It's for me. It's for my benefit. It's for my growth. So recognizing that and realizing I'm not making an independent decision with no one telling me anything. Subconsciously, I'm being pushed in different directions. And I need to bring that into my consciousness and consciously decide that I'm not going to listen to others. I'm going to listen to God.
Exactly. And, maybe the mother needs to find out, why does she not want to wear hijab? Like, does she feel restricted when she's wearing hijab? If so, what is she restricted from? And then finding out what is it that she maybe wants, kind of like, if there's something that she could do in a halal environment, that filling that desire up. So for example, if she wants to have fun with her friends, maybe have them at her house in a halal environment and have fun. Like, if she feels that there's a restriction, then there must be a reason for why she doesn't want to wear it.
No, for sure. Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's why maybe at the age of 9 it's much easier to wear hijab, because you're not so much concerned about the way you look. Whereas, as you grow older, the way you look is really, really important, because again, that's what's been pushed, down our throats. It's like, how you look is so important, that you're constantly trying to, make yourself look a certain way, feel a certain way, and it's really sad. And then the internet doesn't help with that as well. Social media doesn't help with that as well. So you're constantly. I mean, you think about the amount of photos that you post on the social media, and the number of likes you're wanting. And I've heard of people who, in fact, I've actually counseled people who get really depressed when they put a photo up and no one likes it, because it's like, what's wrong with me? And you're constantly looking for gratification from others. You're not satisfied until you've got some sort of appreciation from others, and that's a really sad way of living. Yeah, because you don't value your own self unless others tell you that you're something. And that's quite sad. So again, having that conversation, and why is it that she doesn't want to wear it? And obviously, a lot of it will be in the way that she's perceived by others, in the way that she perceives herself. The fact that she's actually hiding her beauty, and it's innate in women to show off their beauty.
Exactly, yeah.
So again, recognizing that. So if you look in the Holy Quran, when God talks about stealing, he mentions the male before the female. Whereas when he talks about adultery, he mentions the female before the male. And that's not to say that, one is to blame more than the other. But what it's to say is that a lot of the times, subconsciously, the way that God's created us, it's initiated by us without us even realizing. So we as women have been created innately to attract men.
Okay.
Because that's how the survival of the human race continues.
Right,
so we do it without even thinking about it. And this is why maybe sometimes, you'll hear that, within rape cases, people are raped by people who they knew, and because they were sending off the wrong message without even realizing that they were.
Right, okay.
So it's important to recognize that you may be doing it without meaning to, because it's innate in us. So, we'll move a certain way, say something a certain way, laugh a certain way. And the hijab actually helps to control that, because it puts a barrier. So even if you do it, it's like that barrier is there, and the man can see that there's a barrier there, and you're constantly reminded that there's a barrier there. So all these are benefits also to recognize that you're protecting your own self as well, your physical being as well.
Yeah.
It's really, really important. And obviously, as you get older, and the way that we live in the West, it's encouraged to flaunt it. If you have it, flaunt it, sort of thing. You know, why wouldn't you use the assets that you've been given? But that's not what Islam teaches. Islam teaches about modesty and about you don't have to flaunt it. You know, you keep it for the person who will love you and take care of you, rather than for anyone and everybody.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. And obviously, you know, once you've had those conversations, like you said, look at halal ways of satisfying those desires. So having all girls party at home where maybe you can dress up and, you know, not have hijab and not have hijabi clothes and things. The other thing as well, I think, is to recognize that it is difficult to wear hijab in a non-Muslim country. So giving your child options of wearing things which are considered as fashionable but is still hijabi. Because remember, hijab is a very personal journey. So you can't expect your child to be at the top of their game from the beginning. It's a journey which will start. So as long as the foundation is there, where they're fully covered, they're wearing baggy clothes so the shape of their body is not shown. The only thing that should be shown is their hands and their face, nothing else. So the wrist and everything is covered. They're wearing socks so their feet are covered. If all of that is done, then how they choose to do it should be left to them a little bit.
A bit more flexible,
yeah. And you know, sort of encouraging them to have their own style and identity through what the clothes that they wear. Maybe allowing them a little bit more money to spend, because to find hijabi clothes may be a little bit more difficult. And also having non-hijabi clothes that they can wear at home with their friends as well, at the mosque and so forth. So, you know, I remember whenever my kids went, you know, when they would go out shopping, my daughter would always get more money than my son for these reasons. And it actually made her feel more special. And she would, you know, like, no, I've got more money than you and I can buy more stuff and everything. And it actually made her happy about it. So it's encouraging it in a positive way rather than, you know, constantly having a go at them. And, you know, and a lot of the times as parents, when our children do wear hijab, we're constantly picking up on the things that they're not doing. Oh, a little bit of your hair is showing. And yes, we should tell them, but at the same time, tell them when it's not showing. Oh, well done, I'm really proud of you. Today your hair didn't show at all. And I love that outfit because it's, you know, it covers you so well and it looks so good on you as well. Sort of, you know, so actually encouraging them positively. And then when you pick up on the things that they're not doing so right, it's not constant being told off all the time.
Exactly, and then they don't start resenting the hijab because they're like, you know, I'm never getting it right.
Yeah.
You know, I might as well just not wear it, or, you know, these things start to come.
Yeah, no, for sure. The other thing also, I think, is also looking at the positives and the negatives as well. So the fact that we have hadiths which talk about that if a woman leaves her house without hijab, Allah actually assigns angels to her which will send bala on her.
Okay.
All the way through till she comes back into her house. That's huge. So actually having a conversation with her daughter, asking her what does she understand by this hadith, what does bala mean to her, you know, and maybe as a parent actually telling her, you know what, I love you so much that I can't see this happening to you.
Right.
As a mother, I can't allow this. So I'm going to force you to wear hijab because you're just not listening. We've had the conversation. I've tried to explain to you. We've had these discussions. Nothing's going in. So while you're living in my house, I'm going to force you to wear the hijab. And I know, and actually tell her, I know you're going to take it off as soon as you go around the corner. But at least from the door of our house to the corner, you're not having bala thrown on you.
Okay.
So making her realize how important it is that you're trying to protect her because you love her so much.
Right, okay.
Rather than from a perspective of, I'm your mother and you're going to do what I tell you, whether you like it or not.
So she understands the value of the soul in a way that you're willing to force it upon her just so she can get those few moments of not having, like her soul
not being damaged.
Not being damaged.
Exactly. And right. It's the same way, the way that we force our children to go to school when they don't want to, or do homework when they don't want to. A lot of the times as parents, whenever I talk to parents, they'll say, but I don't want her to hate the religion, or I don't want her to hate the hijab, or I don't want her to disrespect the hijab. Yes, she may hate it in the same way she hates school or she hates homework, But as she grows older, she'll see the value in it.
Right.
And, you know, this concept of disrespecting the hijab, I don't want her to disrespect it by taking it off. She's disrespecting it by not wearing it in the first place. So for you to say, I'm not going to let her wear it till I know she's not going to take it off, because that would be disrespectful. It's disrespectful not wearing it in the first place.
Okay, but what if, for example, there's, say for instance, that a mother was to go down that route. What if the child just decides that they just resent it even more because of this being forced upon them?
Again, they may do, in the same way as the homework. But it's about you constantly having those conversations with her and not okaying the fact that she doesn't wear it. A lot of the times when we allow them not to wear it, they see that as an okay. And the conversations actually stop. This way, because you're forcing it on her, the conversations will continue. And if you're explaining to her that you're doing it from a place of love rather than from a place of authoritativeness, it'll make her think, hopefully. And again, guidance is constantly coming down with God, from God. So, you know, the minute she's ready to take on that guidance, it will, you know, she'll understand the hijab. But the guidance can only be taken on by a soul who is open to that guidance. And as she is disobeying Allah, her soul is not open towards that guidance. So by you protecting the soul, even to a small amount, you're hopefully opening her up to the guidance that God is sending down to her.
Okay.
So I think it's important that I'm not saying force it from the beginning. I'm saying that we should explain, role model it, have conversations, have discussions, bring in the role models that we have. Again, it's like, you know, if she's someone who connects to Lady Fatima alayhi salam or Lady Zainab alayhi salam, what is it that you learn from them? You know, if you're crying at the musibah of Karbala, at what happened in Karbala and the aftermath, one of the greatest injustice that was done was the way that the women were treated and their hijab removed. Again, how can you cry about that if you yourself are choosing not to wear the hijab? Yeah, so actually getting her to reflect on these things and what they mean to her and what these role models are there for and what do they teach us. And this concept of, a lot of the times, I know when I was growing up, hijab was taught to me as from a perspective of, I'm doing this so a man doesn't look at me. Again, it's like that's his problem, not mine.
Exactly, yeah.
So instead of that, it's like, I'm doing this to protect myself, for my soul to grow, for me to get closer to God.
You have to look at it in that way, because I think if you look at it in the way where you're doing it for someone else,
you're going to resent it.
You're not going to want to do it. You know, you have to think, well, I'm not doing it for you. You should be lowering your gaze.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm doing it because
that's what the verse says, right? Initially,
exactly.
It's directed to the men.
That's how they need to think. They need to think that it's not making you lower than the man. It's actually empowering you, because it's giving you a choice to choose.
Yeah.
That yes, if a man decides to look, that's between him and Allah. He should be lowering his gaze, but you're doing it for your own soul, because you're thinking of your afterlife. You're going to be buried separately. You know, Allah's not going to say to you, oh, you know, oh, that's fine. You didn't wear it for this or that reason. He's going to say, well, you didn't protect your soul.
Yeah.
So you have to look at it in that way. And I think girls have that problem. They associate it with what you just said.
That's
I'm
what
doing
we're
it
told.
for the man.
Yeah.
No, you're not. See it the completely different way. Empower yourself as women and empower your souls. Because like you were saying before, we're constantly thinking about the physical world. With the homework kind of example, homework you can physically see. So maybe when they think of homework, they think, well, if I don't do it, my results are not going to be that good.
Or I'll get detention, or something.
It's that not understanding that spiritual soul as
and I think
much.
That's where the Play-Doh example comes into play, because now you can actually see what you're doing to your soul.
Exactly.
Which is very powerful.
So it's I think from a young age. But she did say that her youngest child at the age of 9 had started to wear hijab. So I wonder whether could it possibly be something she's done differently, or maybe a personality difference between the children?
It could be either, and you don't know. I mean, I think they subconsciously, would have done things differently, because they've seen that they've not managed to teach their older child. So without even thinking about it, you're going to do things differently.
Okay.
So I'm sure that is there. But obviously there's different personalities and things as well, and so you have to approach it differently. And that's why when you talk to your children about God and about the religion and so forth, you need to approach it in different ways. You can't, it's not the same for each child. Every child is so different.
Of course.
So I'm sure that personality thing comes into it. But I don't like the way that she's put that her older one is stubborn. I don't think it's so much stubborn. I think it's more about lack of understanding.
Okay.
And I think that's what it's about. And it's like, if you don't understand something, you're not going to do it. And it's like, if you're being pushed to do something which makes no sense to you, you're not going to do it. And that's not stubborn. That's just logical.
Of course.
Yeah. So it's a lot of the times, I think as parents, we concentrate on teaching our children what to do and what not to do, the halal and the haram, and the wajib and the haram and so forth. But before we go down that route, we need to build a relationship with God with them. So they need to understand who God is, and that God loves me, and that God cares about me. God's created me for heaven. He's created me with a huge potential that He wants me to reach, and He's helping me reach that. The fact that I am the soul, and all of these things. If I understand all of these things, then I'm told that God's telling me this, this, this for my benefit, then I'll want to follow it.
Of course, yeah.
Rather than constantly...
Makes it easier.
Yeah. It's, a lot of the times, when you're growing up in a non-Islamic country, you feel like you're in a jail. And everyone else is having so much fun and you're not. And if you're taught the other way, you actually feel like, no, God's trying to protect you. There's so much evil and horrible things happening. And when we see that out in the world, I know people who will not pick up the newspaper and read it because all there is negativity and the evil that's out there. Yeah. So, God's just trying to protect us from all of that.
Definitely.
And why wouldn't I? And then this concept of, where she says, and she's becoming so beautiful and I'm so worried that she will attract the wrong sort of crowd. Again, you're looking at only the physical beauty. It's the inner beauty that's more important. Exactly. So recognizing that I'm damaging my inner beauty by disobeying Allah.
Yeah, no, that's beautifully said. Thank you so much, Masuma. And it is one of those kind of tricky topics that we all have to go through, and it does come in the back of my mind with my own daughters. But inshallah, hopefully, Masuma has addressed your concerns, and I do pray for you all, for all mothers out there, and also young girls who are having to go through the difficulty of having these issues in the world that we live in today. And inshallah, hopefully, your daughter eventually tries to kind of wear the hijab. And thank you so much again, Masuma. Thank you for joining us for this wonderful topic. And please, again, do feel free to send in your concerns, your worries, any queries, whatever they may be. Again, do not feel embarrassed. We're all here together to learn and try and find the best solutions possible. And please, again, do join us for another episode of Dear Masuma. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.